And if the audio keeps dropping, maybe I turn off the webcam so we have priority of that.
I think it might be good just to introduce yourself and then turn off the webcam and then go into your presentation, because we can still hear you and I can turn the slide when you say.
Excellent. Tell me when I'm free to start.
Okay, it'd be good if you start now. Thank you.
Okay. So, to the organizers for making this remote presentation possible. My name is Daniel. I'm the Marine Species Officer at the CITES Secretariat. I'm very grateful to be able to join remotely. I'm sure many of you will be aware of that, but I think it might nevertheless be helpful to just establish the basics. And then if you have any questions, either at the end of today or also in the course of the rest of the workshop tomorrow, we're very happy to convey them to me via Kim, and I'll do my best to answer them as quickly as possible. Next slide, please. So I'll start with a section.
Hold on. Sorry, Daniel. Sorry, yes. Daniel, 1 second. Excuse me.
Yeah.
You have to put it on the presentation so I can get the next slide up.
So I'll start with a section about what is CITES. Next slide, please. So CITES is a bilateral agreement that operates through an intergovernmental process with trade teams within a legally binding instrument, achieving conservation and sustainable use objectives, which is not seen. I second and that go into all of these elements in more detail. Kim, all fine?
Yes, all good.
So, next slide, please. Orange, final destination. Next slide, please. The species regulated under CITES are divided among 3 appendices.
Sorry, Daniel. It's not going to the next slide. You're going to have to take over. You know, because this button is not working.
All good?
Just give him 1 minute, Daniel. I think what he's done is he's clicked onto Skype again, so the machine's not recognizing the talk in the background. I think he has to click on the talk, but the technician's just trying to work it out. We're currently still on the CITES objective slide.
Okay.
I'll tell you when it's moved. Thank you.
No worries. And this regulated. And Appendix 3 contains species that are protected in at least one country, which has asked other CITES parties to assist in control of this. Additions to Appendix 3 can be done unilaterally. Appendix 1 or 2 requires a decision by the Council of the Next slide, system. So this gives you a couple of examples of CITES listed marine species. And click please, Kim. There should now be a red rectangle around sawfish. Salt is the only group of species on that list that is listed in Appendix 1. That means, with what I said earlier, that all of the other species can be traded as long as the trade is sustainable and legal. CITES is not about prohibiting trade. It's about ensuring that trade is sustainable and legal. So for all of the species that you see on this slide, from an international law perspective, you can trade in them as long as you fulfill the provisions of CITES, which are related to traceability, sustainability, and legality. And I'll go into a bit more detail on that later. Next slide, please. So, taking that into account, the former Secretary General John Scanlon, in a presentation on the role of CITES in fisheries, said that CITES is the interface between sustainable use and international trade for fisheries, focusing on species that have declined to a level that requires management measures to maintain or rebuild stocks. CITES plays a well-targeted role in advancing implementation of SDG 14 as a trade-related measure with effective compliance measures, and it complements the work of other organizations to improve fisheries management. CITES is not seeking to replace any other organization. It's more of figuring out for the species that parties have decided to present as CITES, how can synergistically work together and how can CITES help achieve the mandate of other organizations as well. For example, by adding trade control on top of other measures and by adding binding compliance measures. And for example, most of the scientific evidence used in fishery science would easily fulfill the requirements of CITES no detriment finding. In fact, even less complicated fisheries statistics would be extremely useful for parties to fulfill the sustainability criteria and studies. And I'll go into a bit more detail later. So how does CITES work? Next slide. And again, next slide. The common procedural mechanism set by is one, permitting and certificates. So for any import, export, re-export from the sea, CITES requires the respective permits or certificates, and it applies to animals and plants, live, dead, parts and derivatives, and permits are only issued if conference that takes place every 3 years. It's the only place where major decisions on the CITES can be made. The conference of the parties has created subsidiary groups which do work when the parties isn't in session, and that is on the one side the standing committee, which is has most it's parties that are present there. There's a system of regional representation, but most of the time, almost all of the parties are there. And the standing committee can make decisions on compliance matters and on trade regulation, implementation of the convention, sort of more legal and compliance matters in the years in which there's no COP. So usually there's 2 standing committees, and then there's a COP, and then there's 2 standing committees again. The Plants and Animals Committee on there are technical committees that are also important to be invited, but there it's individuals serve. It's not parties, it's individuals that serve in their personal capacity as experts and provide guidance. It's also, again, a system of regional representation, and they can provide technical guidance to the standing committee and the conference of the parties. That somebody's sitting in the seat of a country, but because of challenges in transmitting official documents or because of misunderstandings, that person will not be credentialed, and then that person cannot vote. And we always have at every scientific meeting, at the standing committee and at the COP, that delegations show up, and they are the right person, they're the designated member, but they...
The proposers of species, they tend to have spoken to the range states. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. They're supposed to do, there's something called range state consultation, which is a requirement in the amendment proposals. And they, in the amendment proposal, they have to say how they consulted range states. And there's, so you could have the theoretical case that a non-range state proposes a party, which has, for example, happened to with fungi cardinalfish at the last COP. But it's not binding, it's not law, but there's kind of like a gentleman's agreement or a culture in CITES that you don't push through listing proposals if the range state is against them. So, for example, fungi cardinalfish might have carried the day if it had come to a vote, even though the range state in Indonesia was against it. But instead, the Commission, or the European Union, which was the proponent, decided to withdraw its proposal and instead propose a set of decisions to work on fungi cardinalfish in the intersessional period. So it's quite uncommon. I can't see it heard of because there might be some terrestrial species that I'm not aware of. But it's quite rare that the Conference of the Parties forces a proposal on a range state unless other range states of the species support it.
Thank you. Is there any more questions for Daniel? Yes.
December to submit the proposal. So, what is the mechanism next after the submitted proposal already received by the CITES? Is the scientific committee evaluate the all proposal, which one is appropriate, which one is not, or just all the received proposal be presented during COP 18?
Receive the proposals, and then we start with sort of small editorial checks. For example, is the nomenclature correct? Is the nomenclature reference provided? We might need to check with the nomenclature expert on any guidance regarding nomenclature questions. Is the format correct, and so on, just like the first checklist. And then once all that is sorted, we publish them, which is what is early January. And at the same time, we send it to all the parties, and we send it to the relevant organizations, so for example, FAO, CFDET, and so on, to provide their comments. At the same time, the Secretariat, the Convention asks the Secretariat to provide its own recommendations on each of the proposals. So what we do is we start reviewing the proposals based on the criteria are in the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel, comprehensive presentation. Within your presentation material, non-determinant finding, NBS can use different methodologies and approaches. For example, 3 examples: risk assessment, stock assessment, and adaptive management. I want to confirm adaptive management. Sometimes wider meaning, sometimes restrict. What kind of adaptive management can you use? Any example or any explanation briefly? Thank you so much.
Thank you. If I promote, it depends a bit on how you define it. But it's listed shark species, but they haven't collected data to the species level. And then when the scientific authority was asked to make an NDF, at first the scientific authority